The words hit me like a slap I never saw coming. You, dreaming big? Ha, you'll end up just like the rest of us, stuck in this dead-end town, scraping by. My mom's voice echoed through the kitchen, sharp and full of that familiar disdain. She laughed, actually laughed, as if my ambitions were some kind of joke she'd heard 1,000 times. I stood there, frozen, my heart pounding in my chest, feeling the heat rise to my face. How could she say that to her own daughter, the one who'd spent nights poring over books and ideas, sketching out plans for something bigger than this suffocating life? I remember clenching my fists so tight my nails dug into my palms. The room felt smaller, the air thicker as her words hung there, poisoning everything. But in that moment, something inside me shifted. It wasn't just hurt, it was a spark of fury, quiet at first, but building. She didn't know it yet, but that mockery was the fuel I needed, the push to prove her wrong, no matter what it took. Let me back up just a bit, though I hate reliving this part. My name is Elena, and I've always been the dreamer in a family that clipped wings before they could even spread. Growing up in a small town where everyone knew everyone's business, I was the odd one out. While other kids played outside, I was inside, reading about entrepreneurs and innovators, imagining a world beyond the dusty streets and rundown houses. My mom, well, she was the queen of practicality, or so she called it. Widowed young, she worked 2 jobs to keep us afloat, and in her eyes, dreams were luxuries we couldn't afford. "Get your head out of the clouds, Elena," she'd say, over and over. But this time, it was different. This time, her words cut deeper, because I'd finally shared my big idea with her. It started innocently enough. I'd been tinkering with an app concept in my spare time, something to connect local artisans with buyers online, cutting out the middlemen who exploited them. I thought it could change things, not just for me, but for people like us. Excited, I showed her my rough sketches one evening after dinner. Her response? That laugh, that dismissal. "Billion-dollar dreams? From you? Stick to reality, girl. Get a steady job at the factory like your cousins." The betrayal stung, because it came from the one person who should have believed in me. But as I stormed out of the house that night, tears blurring my vision, I made a silent vow. I wouldn't let her words define me. I'd turn them into my weapon. As days turned into weeks, the conflict brewed inside me. I kept my head down at my part-time job at the local diner, serving coffee to the same faces day in and day out, but my mind was elsewhere. Late nights, I'd sneak into the library after hours, thanks to a sympathetic librarian who saw the fire in my eyes, and teach myself coding basics on their old computers. It was grueling, frustrating, but every small victory felt like a step away from that kitchen confrontation. Yet doubt crept in. Was she right? Was I just fooling myself? Then came the first real sign of trouble. My mom started pushing me harder towards safe options. She set up an interview at the factory without telling me, and when I refused, she exploded. "You're throwing your life away on fantasies," she yelled. I could see the fear in her eyes, masked as anger, but it didn't soften the blow. It only made me more determined. Little did I know, this was just the beginning of the signals that something deeper was at play, her own unresolved regrets, perhaps, projected onto me. I pushed forward, scraping together every penny from tips to buy a cheap laptop. My app idea evolved. I named it CraftLink, envisioning it as a platform where handmade goods could reach global markets. But building it alone was tough. I hit walls. Technical glitches I couldn't fix, marketing ideas that went nowhere. And all the while, her voice echoed in my head, mocking every setback. "Dreaming big, you'll crash and burn." One evening, as I sat in my room staring at a screen full of errors, a friend from high school reached out. Sarah, who'd moved to the city and was interning at a tech startup, offered to look at my code. "This has potential, Alina," she said after reviewing it. Her encouragement was like a lifeline, pulling me from the edge of giving up. We started collaborating remotely, and slowly the app took shape. But back home, the tension escalated. My mom noticed my late nights and distant attitude. "What's gotten into you?" she'd ask, but I kept my project secret now, guarding it like a fragile flame. The conflict peaked during a family gathering. Aunts and uncles chimed in, echoing her sentiments. "Elena's got her head in the clouds again," they'd tease. I smiled through it, but inside I was seething. That night, I decided, no more hiding. I'd launch CraftLink, no matter the risks. But as I prepared, I uncovered something unexpected, a hidden advantage from my past that would change everything. You see, my late father had been a craftsman himself, with connections I'd forgotten about. In an old box of his things, I found contacts for suppliers and artists he'd worked with. It was like he'd left me a roadmap. Using those, I reached out, and responses flooded in. People were eager for a fair platform. My app wasn't just an idea anymore, it was gaining traction. But the betrayal reveal was looming. One day, I overheard my mom on the phone with my aunt. "Elena's wasting her time on some silly app. I told her to drop it, but she's stubborn. If she fails, it'll be her own fault." Her words confirmed what I'd suspected. She wasn't just doubting me, she was actively hoping I'd quit to fit her mold. The hurt turned to resolve. I wouldn't confront her yet. Instead, I'd let my success speak. Emotionally, I shut down around her. Conversations became short, polite. I poured everything into CraftLink. And then the launch. Beta users signed up, sales trickled in. It was small, but real. The revenge was building, calculated, patient. I'd grow this into something massive, and when the time came, expose it all. Public exposure? Oh, it would come. But for now, I focused on scaling. Partnerships formed, investors nibbled. My empire was rising from the ashes of her mockery. I stopped sharing anything real with her after that kitchen scene. No more late night talks, no more showing her my progress screenshots, no more hoping for even a flicker of pride. I became polite, distant, almost a stranger in my own home. Breakfast was silent except for the clink of spoons. She'd ask how work was going at the diner. I'd say, fine, and that was it. Inside, though, I was burning. Every shift I worked, every extra tip I tucked away, every hour I stole from sleep, it all fed the same fire. CraftLink wasn't just an app anymore. It was my silent rebellion. Sarah and I worked like we were racing time itself. She handled the front-end design while I wrestled the back-end logic. We argued over colors at 3 a.m., laughed when things crashed spectacularly, cried a little when we finally got the payment gateway to connect without errors. Those were the moments that kept me going, small wins that felt massive when the rest of my world was still mocking the dream. Then the first real traction hit. A local woodcarver, someone my dad used to buy supplies from, uploaded his pieces. Within 48 hours, 3 orders came in from different states. He called me crying, voice shaking. "Elena, I haven't sold anything online before. This money, it's rent for 3 months." I sat on my bed holding the phone, tears streaming down my face. Not because I was sad, but because for the first time, I understood what this could really mean. Not just for me, for people like him, people my mom always said were stuck forever. Word spread quietly in the artisan community. More sellers joined. A pottery artist from 2 towns over, a jewelry maker who worked from her kitchen table, a weaver who'd almost given up. Each new profile felt like another brick in the wall I was building between my mother's words and my future. But success attracts attention, even when you're trying to stay invisible. One afternoon, I came home from the diner to find my mom standing in the hallway holding my laptop, open, screen still glowing with the CraftLink dashboard. My stomach dropped. "What is this?" she asked, voice low and dangerous. I froze in the doorway, keys still in my hand. She turned the screen toward me. "Elena, you've been lying to me, spending all your time on this nonsense. I thought you were studying for something real." I could have exploded. I could have screamed every hurt feeling I'd swallowed for months. Instead, I felt something colder settle in my chest. Control. It's not nonsense. It's working. People are making money. Real money. She laughed, that same sharp, dismissive laugh from the kitchen months earlier. People? A few trinkets sold? That's not a business, Elena. That's a hobby, and you're throwing your life away on it. I looked at her, really looked at her. The lines around her mouth, the exhaustion in her eyes, the fear she tried to hide behind anger. For a second, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Instead, I walked past her, took my laptop gently from her hands, and closed the screen. You don't have to understand, but you will see. That was the moment the emotional shutdown became complete. From then on, I treated her like a roommate I was waiting to move out from under. No warmth, no arguments, just calm distance. It hurt her. I could see it in the way her shoulders slumped when I left the room without another word. But I couldn't afford to care anymore. Caring had only ever gotten me mocked. Meanwhile, CraftLink kept growing. Sarah found a freelance developer in India who could help us scale the server for almost nothing. We launched a referral program. Sellers started bringing in their friends. Orders jumped from dozens to hundreds per week, then thousands in monthly revenue. I reinvested every cent. Better photos for listings, targeted ads on small social pages, even a basic customer support chatbot I built myself. One night, Sarah video called me at 2 a.m. her time. Elena, we just crossed $50,000 in total sales in 1 month. I stared at the screen, mouth open. 50,000. That was more than my mom made in 2 years at both her jobs combined. We laughed, we cried, we screamed into pillows so we wouldn't wake anyone. It felt unreal, like I'd stepped into someone else's life. But I still hadn't told anyone at home. Not my mom, not my aunts, not the neighbors who still asked if I'd found a real job yet. I wanted the moment to be perfect. I wanted undeniable proof. Then came the email that changed everything. Subject: investment interest. CraftLink. From Horizon Ventures. They'd found us through organic search traffic and seller reviews. They wanted to talk. Serious money. 7 figures. In exchange for equity, yes, but also mentorship, connections, infrastructure, the kind of help that turns a promising startup into a real company. I read the email 3 times before I believed it. I didn't tell my mom. Not yet. Instead, I booked a cheap bus ticket to the city, told her I was visiting Sarah for the weekend, and went to meet them. The meeting was in a glass-walled office on the 15th floor. I wore my best, only, blazer, the one I'd bought secondhand and ironed 5 times. My hands were shaking when I walked in. They didn't treat me like a kid. They treated me like someone with something valuable. By the end of the 2-hour conversation, they made an offer. $1.8 million for 18% equity, plus board seats and accelerated growth support. I didn't cry in front of them. I smiled, thanked them, said I'd review with my team, which was really just Sarah and me texting frantically in the bathroom. On the bus ride home, staring out at the dark highway, I finally let the tears come. Not from fear, from the sheer weight of what was happening. My mother's voice tried to creep back in. "You'll crash and burn," but it sounded smaller now, weaker. When I got home at dawn, she was already up making coffee. She looked at my tired eyes and asked, "How is Sarah?" "Fine," I said. Same flat tone I'd used for months. She sighed. "You look exhausted. When are you going to stop this chasing and get serious?" I met her gaze for the first time in weeks. "Soon," I told her, "very soon." She had no idea how right I was. I signed the papers 2 weeks later in that same glass office, with Sarah by my side this time. We were both trying to play it cool, but our hands were trembling as we initialed page after page. $1.8 million. It sounded like a number from someone else's story, not mine, not the girl from the small town with the mocking mom. Horizon Ventures saw what I saw. A platform that wasn't just selling crafts, it was empowering creators who'd been overlooked for too long. They promised marketing muscle, tech upgrades, even a small team to handle operations. "This could be huge," their lead investor said, shaking my hand. "Billion-dollar potential, easy." Billion-dollar. The word echoed in my head as I rode the bus home again, this time with a check in my bag that could change everything. But I didn't feel joy yet, not fully. There was still that knot in my stomach, the one tied tight by my mother's words. This wasn't just success, this was my calculated revenge taking shape. I'd build this empire quietly, let it grow until it was impossible to ignore, and then, only then, let the truth hit like a storm. Back home, I deposited the funds into a new business account I'd set up online, far from prying eyes. No fanfare, no announcements. I quit the diner the next day, telling my boss it was for family reasons. She hugged me, wished me luck. My mom noticed the change immediately. "You're not going to work?" she asked that morning, eyebrows raised over her coffee mug. "I quit," I said simply, pouring myself a cup. She set her mug down hard. "Quit? Just like that? What are you thinking, Elena? We need that money." I looked at her, calm as ice. "We'll be fine." She searched my face for clues, but I gave her nothing. The emotional wall I'd built was solid now, no cracks. She'd mocked my dreams. Now she'd live in the dark about their reality. It was petty, maybe, but it felt like justice. Small, daily justice. With the investment came acceleration. We hired our first employees, 2 developers, and a marketing whiz, all remote to keep costs low. Sarah moved to full-time as COO. I became CEO, a title that felt surreal when I first saw it on business cards. CraftLink exploded. We added features, live auctions for unique pieces, subscription boxes for buyers, even AI recommendations based on browsing history. Sellers poured in from across the country, then internationally. A bead artist from Mexico, a textile weaver from India, they all found a home on our platform. Revenue climbed, $100,000 a month, then $500,000. We hit 7 figures before the year was out. Headlines started trickling in on niche blogs. Indie app disrupts Etsy with fair trade focus. CraftLink, the startup empowering artisans worldwide. I saved every article, but shared none at home. The hidden advantage I'd found in my dad's old contacts, it multiplied. Those early sellers became ambassadors, vouching for us in communities I couldn't have reached alone. One even connected me to a celebrity stylist who featured our products in a magazine spread. Sales spiked overnight. But as things soared, the betrayal signals from home grew louder. My mom started making pointed comments. "I saw your cousin got promoted at the factory. Steady pay, benefits, that's security." Or, "Dreamers end up broke, Alina, mark my words." Each time, I'd nod silently, letting her words bounce off me. Inside, I was plotting. The revenge wasn't about yelling or fighting, it was about proving her wrong so completely that her worldview would crack. Then came the first big test. A competitor tried to copy our model, undercutting prices to lure sellers away. It stung, we lost a few accounts. Sarah panicked a little, but I stayed steady. "This is part of it," I told her. "We'll innovate out of it." We rolled out exclusive tools, free shipping integrations, analytics dashboards for sellers to track their growth. It worked. Not only did we regain ground, we pulled ahead. That crisis, it was my hidden advantage in disguise, teaching me resilience I'd need for what came next. Emotionally, the shutdown deepened. Holidays were tense. At Thanksgiving, relatives asked about my little hobby. I smiled vaguely. "It's coming along." My mom watched me closely, suspicion in her eyes, but said nothing direct. Good, let her wonder. As CraftLink hit $10 million in annual revenue, the investors pushed for expansion. Go global, Elena. Offices in major cities, partnerships with big retailers. I agreed, but on my terms. We opened a small hub in the city, and I started commuting, telling my mom it was temp work to avoid questions. The lies were easy now. They protected my peace. One evening, back in town, I overheard her again, this time talking to a neighbor. "Elena's still chasing rainbows. I worry she'll end up with nothing." The words fueled me. I channeled them into late-night strategy sessions. We secured a deal with a major online marketplace for cross-promotions. User base doubled. Valuations whispered among investors, $50 million, then $100 million. The betrayal reveal was building to a head. I knew I couldn't keep it secret forever. The app was getting press. Local news even mentioned a hometown success story. Whispers reached our street. My mom confronting me one night. People are saying you're involved in some online thing? Is that true? I met her gaze. Yes. Her face twisted, confusion, then anger. And you didn't tell me? After all I've done? You told me it was nonsense, I said softly. Why sheer nonsense? She went pale. For the first time, I saw regret flicker in her eyes. But it was too late for that. The emotional shutdown was my shield, and I wasn't lowering it. Calculated revenge phase 1 complete. Now for the public exposure. I'd wait for the perfect moment, a milestone that would make headlines everywhere. Our first billion in valuation? Close. We were negotiating a Series B round that could push us there. Investors were lining up. Media inquiries flooded in. In quiet moments, I'd reflect on how far I'd come, from that kitchen mockery to boardrooms with millionaires. It wasn't luck, it was grit, born from pain. And soon, the world would know my story, not as a victim, but as a victor. But first, more gross. We launched in Europe, then Asia. Sellers hit record numbers. A documentary crew reached out, wanting to feature us. I declined, for now. Timing was everything. As the empire solidified, permanent consequences loomed for those who doubted us. Not destruction, but a shift they couldn't ignore. My mom would see her words thrown back, not in anger, but in success. I was ready for the cold exit from this chapter of hurt. Zero forgiveness? Not quite, but no forgetting either. The Series B round closed at $25 million, valuing CraftLink at $150 million overnight. I remember sitting in the conference room, watching the wire transfer confirm on my screen, feeling a rush that wasn't just about the money. It was vindication, pure, sweet vindication. Sarah and I high-fived across the table, our new team cheering in the background. We'd gone from a bedroom project to a company with offices, employees, and a logo that people recognized. But back in my small town, I was still the girl with her head in the clouds. At least, that's what they thought. I expanded aggressively. We hired more staff, designers, customer service reps, even a PR specialist. CraftLink went mobile with a sleek app update, and downloads surged. Partnerships rolled in. Big box stores wanted exclusive lines. Influencers promoted us for free because they believed in the mission. Sellers weren't just making sales, they were building businesses. One woman turned her side hustle into a full-time operation employing 10 people. Stories like that kept me up at night, not with worry, but with excitement. This was bigger than revenge now. It was impact. Yet the calculated revenge simmered beneath it all. I started documenting everything, not for lawsuits or drama, but for the story I'd tell when the time came. Screenshots of early mocks from my mom, notes on every doubt she'd voiced. It sounds cold, but it kept me focused. No more emotional leaks. I'd sealed them shut. Home life? A ghost town of interactions. I'd moved out quietly, renting a modest apartment in the city, but keeping a room in the old house for visits. My mom noticed the absences. "Where are you going all the time?" she'd ask, voice laced with concern she tried to hide as irritation. I'd shrug. "Work stuff." The vagueness drove her crazy. I could see it in the way she'd hover, searching for clues. Once, she found a business card that slipped from my bag. "CEO? Of what?" she demanded. I paused, considering. This could have been the reveal. But no, too soon. "It's nothing," I said, tucking it away. Her face fell, a mix of confusion and hurt. Good. Let her feel a fraction of what I'd felt. As the company hit $50 million in revenue, the media frenzy began. Tech podcasts invited me on. I declined most, staying low-key. But one article slipped through, a profile in a business magazine. From small-town dreamer to tech trailblazer, Elena's CraftLink revolution. It mentioned my roots vaguely, no names, but enough for locals to connect dots. Whispers turned to questions. Neighbors stopped me at the grocery store. "Is that you in the paper, Elena? Some big shot now?" I smiled politely. "Something like that." The betrayal reveal hit my mom like a freight train. She called me one evening, voice trembling. "I saw the article. Is it true? All this time you've been building this company? Yes, I said flatly. Silence stretched. Then, why didn't you tell me? I'm your mother. You told me to stop dreaming big, so I did it without your input. She gasped, like I'd slapped her. I was trying to protect you from disappointment. Protect me or hold me back? The words came out sharper than planned, but I didn't regret them. Emotional shutdown or not, some truths needed air. She cried then, apologies tumbling out. I didn't mean to hurt you. I was scared. Your dad had big dreams too, and look what happened. He worked himself to death for nothing. For a second, pity stirred, but I pushed it down. I understand, but understanding doesn't erase the mockery. We hung up awkwardly. No hugs, no reconciliation. That wasn't the point. With the reveal out, calculated revenge shifted gears. I poured fuel on the fire, accepting more interviews, sharing my origin story without naming names, but hinting at the doubters who'd tried to clip my wings. Family can be your biggest supporters or your toughest critics, I'd say with a knowing smile. Viewers ate it up, comments flooded in. Inspiring, screw the haters. Public exposure loomed. We prepped for our biggest milestone, the billion-dollar valuation. Investors buzzed, term sheets flew. I negotiated hard, securing terms that kept me in control. The day the deal signed, $200 million in investment at a $1.2 billion valuation, I stood on the office balcony, wind whipping my hair, feeling unbreakable. The announcement went viral, headlines everywhere. CraftLink hits unicorn status. Small-town girl builds billion-dollar empire. Photos of me, quotes about perseverance. Social media exploded. And in my hometown, shockwaves. I planned the exposure carefully. A homecoming event, supposedly to inspire local youth, but really to close the loop. I rented the community center, invited artisans, press, and yes, family. My mom got a personal invite, hand-delivered. The night arrived. The room buzzed with excitement. I took the stage in a simple dress, no flashy jewels, just me, the girl they'd known, now a billionaire on paper. Thank you all for coming, I started, voice steady. This journey started here, in this town, with a dream that many said was impossible. Eyes turned to my mom in the front row. She looked smaller, uncertain. I shared the story, the kitchen mockery, the doubts, the secret grind. Not bitter, but factual. Someone close told me I'd end up stuck, scraping by. Those words hurt, but they pushed me. Gasps rippled. My mom's face crumpled. But here's the truth, I continued. Dreams aren't luxuries, they're necessities. And today, CraftLink isn't just my success, it's ours. We've empowered thousands, created jobs, changed lives. Applause thundered. Reporters swarmed afterward, questions flying. Who mocked you? One asked. I smiled. Doesn't matter now. What matters is proving them wrong. But everyone knew. The town talked for weeks. My mom, exposed in the gentlest way possible, through truth, not vengeance. Permanent consequences followed. Family dynamics shifted. Aunts who'd teased now called with congratulations, awkward and belated. My mom tried bridging the gap, notes, calls, even showing up at my city office. I'm proud, she'd say, eyes pleading. I nodded. Thanks, but the warmth was gone. The shutdown had become habit, a protective layer I wasn't ready to shed. The cold exit came naturally. I sold the old house, gently giving her time to adjust, and focused fully on the empire. Board meetings, global expansions, philanthropy arms for artisans in need. In quiet moments, I'd reflect. Her mockery had forged me. Without it, maybe I'd have settled. But forgiveness? Not yet. Maybe never. As I watched the company soar, one thought lingered. Sometimes the best revenge is living the dream they said you'd never reach. The community center event lingered in the air like smoke after a fire, thick, unavoidable. People I'd grown up with approached me afterward, eyes wide with a mix of awe and awkwardness. We had no idea, Alina, they'd say, shaking my hand a little too firmly. You're really something.
I nodded, thanked them, but my focus kept drifting to the back of the room where my mom stood alone, clutching her purse like a lifeline. She didn't come up to the stage, didn't hug me in front of the cameras. Instead, she slipped out early, head down. Part of me wondered if that was her permanent consequence, watching from the sidelines as the world celebrated what she'd dismissed.
Back in the city the next day, I dove into work to shake off the emotional residue. CraftLink was a unicorn now, but that didn't mean rest. We expanded into new markets, Africa, South America, connecting artisans from villages I'd only read about. Revenue streams diversified, premium seller tools, branded merchandise, even educational webinars on business basics. Our user base hit millions. Investors called me a visionary. Employees looked at me with respect I'd earned through sleepless nights and tough calls. But the revenge's echo still played in my mind. Calculated? Absolutely. I'd orchestrated the exposure to be public yet controlled. No direct accusations, just enough truth to let others fill in the blanks. Social media did the rest. Posts about my speech went viral. Girl overcomes family doubt to build empire. Comments poured in, some tagging similar stories. It felt like a ripple effect, inspiring others while quietly underscoring her role in my pain. Permanent consequences unfolded slowly, like a shadow lengthening at dusk. Family gatherings changed. No more teasing about my clouds. Instead, silence when I entered the room, or forced compliments that rang hollow. My cousins, once smug about their factory jobs, now asked for advice on side hustles. Aunts sent messages, "Saw you on the news, so proud." I replied politely but kept distance. The betrayal had reshaped bonds. Some strengthened with those who'd believed early, like Sarah, others frayed beyond repair. My mom tried hardest to mend. Flowers arrived at my office with a card. "I was wrong. Can we talk?" Calls came weekly, voice softer each time. "Elena, I miss you. Let's have dinner." I'd agree sometimes, meeting at neutral spots, cafes in the city where I controlled the exit. Conversations stayed surface, weather, news, her job. When she steered toward the past, I'd steer back. "It's done," I'd say, gently but firmly. No yelling, no tears from me. The emotional shutdown was my armor now, forged in that kitchen and tempered by success. One dinner stood out. She looked older, worry etching deeper lines. "I pushed you because I didn't want you hurt like I was," she confessed, stirring her tea endlessly. "After your dad, I gave up my own dreams. Art school, remember? I thought protecting you meant keeping you safe from failure." I listened, really listened. Her story humanized her, a young widow burying ambitions to survive. But understanding didn't equal absolution. "I get it," I told her, "but your protection felt like chains, and the mockery, that wasn't protection." She nodded, eyes glistening. "I'm sorry, truly." I squeezed her hand once, briefly. "I know." But inside, the zero forgiveness line held. Not hatred, just boundaries. She'd shaped me, yes, but the hurt lingered like a scar, healing on my terms, not hers. As months passed, the cold exit solidified. I visited the town less, immersing myself in the empire's demands. Board meetings in sleek towers, keynotes at conferences, philanthropy trips to artisan communities. CraftLink launched a foundation, grants for dreamers in small towns, mentorship programs echoing my journey. It felt right, turning pain into purpose. Success brought its own conflicts. Copycats emerged, we fought them with innovations. A market dip tested our resilience. I laid off a few, hated it, but steered us through. Each challenge reminded me of her words, "You'll crash." But I didn't. I soared. Public exposure evolved too. A book deal came, my memoir, From Mockery to Millions. I wrote it raw, naming no names, but painting the picture clear. It hit shelves, bestseller lists. Interviews followed, podcasts, TV. "How did you overcome the doubt?" they'd ask. "By turning it into drive," I'd answer. And remembering, the loudest critics are often fighting their own battles. The book tour brought me back home one last time, signing at the local bookstore, line out the door. My mom waited at the end, book in hand. I signed it, "To Mom, dreams do come true."
Elena. She hugged me then, whispering, "I'm so proud." I hugged back, but stepped away first. The exit was cold, necessary. Back in the car, heading to the city, I felt lighter, not forgiven, but free. Years blurred. CraftLink went public, stock soaring, me ringing the bell on Wall Street. Valuation? Over $5 billion. Headlines screamed, "Billion-dollar dreamer shocks the world." In reflection, the lesson crystallized. Betrayal from those closest cuts deepest, but it can forge unbreakable strength. Don't let mockery dim your light. Let it ignite your fire. Justice isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the quiet rise that speaks volumes, and revenge, best served through success that reshapes everything. As for zero forgiveness, it's not about holding grudges. It's about protecting the empire you've built, inside and out. I moved forward, empire thriving, heart guarded. The girl who dreamed big, she won. Looking back now, from the heights of what CraftLink has become, it's hard not to see the irony in it all. That small kitchen in our rundown house, where my mom's laughter once echoed like a death sentence for my dreams, now feels like a distant memory, a starting line I crossed long ago. The empire didn't just grow, it transformed. We weren't only connecting artisans and buyers anymore. We'd built an ecosystem, online courses for creators, supply chain partnerships to source materials ethically, even pop-up events in major cities where sellers could meet fans face to face. Billions in valuation weren't abstract numbers. They were lives changed, communities lifted. But even as the company thrived, the personal fallout from that betrayal lingered like a quiet undercurrent. I'd achieved the public exposure I'd planned, the speech, the book, the headlines, but permanent consequences rippled outward in ways I hadn't fully anticipated. My mom, once the center of our family orbit, found herself on the edges. Relatives who'd sided with her doubts now navigated awkward silences at gatherings. "Elena's busy with her big company," they'd say, voices tinged with envy or regret. I attended fewer events, sending gifts instead. Generous ones to show no hard feelings outwardly, but inside, the shutdown remained. She kept reaching out, her efforts evolving from desperate to steady. A text here, "Saw your latest interview. You looked strong." A voicemail there, "Thinking of you. Call when you can." I responded when it suited me, keeping things light. No deep dives into the past. That door was closed, locked. The calculated revenge had shifted from active planning to passive maintenance, letting success be the constant reminder. One afternoon, during a rare visit home, she cornered me in the living room. The house felt smaller, cluttered with memories I no longer claimed. "Elena, we need to talk. Really talk." I set down my coffee, meeting her gaze. "About what?" "Us. This distance. I know I hurt you. I was wrong. Terribly wrong. But you're my daughter. Can't we move past it?" Her voice cracked, eyes pleading. For a moment, the old me, the girl who'd craved her approval, stirred, but the new me, forged in fire, spoke instead. "Moving past doesn't mean forgetting, Mom. Your words pushed me, yes, but they also broke something. Trust, maybe. I built this without you because I had to, and now I choose to keep it that way." She sat back, deflated. "So no forgiveness?" "Not zero," I said softly, "but not full either. Boundaries aren't punishment, they're protection." She nodded slowly, tears falling. We sat in silence after that, the weight of years between us. When I left that evening, hugging her briefly at the door, it felt like a cold exit from more than just the house, from the version of myself that had needed her belief to dream. Back in the city, life accelerated. CraftLink went international in full force. Offices in London, Tokyo, Mumbai. I traveled constantly, speaking at summits, negotiating deals that made headlines. Elena's empire, how one woman's vision redefined handmade commerce. The stories always circled back to my origins. The mockery turned motivation. It became my brand, resilient, unapologetic. Challenges came, of course. A data breach scare, handled swiftly with top-tier security upgrades. Competitor lawsuits dismissed with ironclad patents. Each hurdle reinforced my resolve. No crashing, no burning, just rising. In quieter times, aboard flights or in hotel rooms, I'd reflect on the moral undertone of it all. Betrayal from family cuts deepest because it's wrapped in love, or what should be love, but it teaches you self-reliance, turns vulnerability into strength. My journey wasn't about destroying her, it was about building me. And in that building, I found justice, not through harm, but through example. The zero forgiveness impact hit its peak during a family crisis. My aunt fell ill, hospital bills mounting, relatives called, hinting at help. I sent funds anonymously through the foundation, generous but detached. When my mom thanked me later, assuming it was me, I didn't confirm. Whoever it was, they're kind, I said. Let her wonder. Let her see the empire's reach without claiming a piece of it.
Years later, as Craftlink celebrated its 10th anniversary with a gala attended by dignitaries and celebrities, I took the stage once more. The room glittered, applause warm. This started with a dream mocked into reality, I said. But remember, every doubter is a teacher in disguise. Use their words as steps, not stones. Offstage, a message waited from her. Watched the live stream, proud beyond words. I smiled faintly, pocketed the phone. No reply needed. The cold exit was complete. The empire, eternal. And the lesson? Dreams mocked are dreams ignited. Betrayals faced are strengths gained. Justice served cold is often the sweetest. Hold no grudges, but guard your fire. For in the end, your success is the ultimate response. Time has a way of blurring the edges of old wounds, but it doesn't erase them completely. As Craftlink entered its next phase, I found myself at the helm of something far beyond what I'd imagined in those early defiant nights. The company wasn't just a business anymore. It was a movement. We partnered with NGOs to support indigenous crafts in remote areas, launched apps in multiple languages, and even started a venture arm to fund similar startups. Billions flowed not just in revenue, but in impact. Schools built from profits, scholarships for young dreamers, supply chains that lifted entire villages out of poverty. From the outside, it looked like I'd conquered everything, but inside, the betrayal's shadow still followed me, a quiet reminder to stay vigilant. I traveled the world now, from bustling markets in Marrakesh to serene workshops in Kyoto, meeting the people whose lives we'd touched. One trip stands out, a visit to a cooperative in rural Peru where women weavers showed me tapestries sold through our platform. "You gave us voices," one said, hugging me tightly. Tears came unbidden. Moments like that healed parts of me the mockery had broken, but they also sharpened my resolve. This success wasn't luck. It was the hidden advantage of persistence turned into a global force. Back home, though I distanced myself, the permanent consequences played out in subtle ways. My mom had retired early thanks to a quiet fund I'd set up for her. Nothing flashy, just enough to ease her days without strings. She volunteered at the local library now, the same one where I'd learned to code in secret. Irony, right? She'd mention it in her occasional texts. "Helped a kid with a project today, reminded me of you." I'd reply with emojis, keeping it light. The emotional shutdown had evolved into a comfortable routine. No deep confessions, no forced closeness. It protected us both. But conflicts arose, testing that boundary. A cousin's wedding brought the family together, and whispers followed me like ghosts. "Elena's the billionaire now, must be nice." Jealousy laced their words, echoes of the old mockery. My mom defended me quietly, I heard later. She's earned it. Progress, maybe. But when she pulled me aside that night, eyes searching, "Can we be a family again?" I paused. "We're family," I said, "just different now." She nodded, but the hurt lingered in her smile. The cold exit from that dynamic was ongoing, necessary for my peace. Calculated revenge? It had morphed into something grander. I channeled it into initiatives that countered the very doubts she'd planted. A mentorship program for small-town kids, teaching them tech and business. "Dream big," I'd tell them in virtual sessions.
even if others laugh. Applications flooded in, success stories emerged. One girl, much like me, launched her own app. "You inspired me," she wrote. That was my payback, multiplying the light where darkness had tried to snuff it. Public exposure continued too. A Netflix documentary chronicled our rise, Empire of Dreams. Cameras followed my journey, from the kitchen scene, recreated tastefully, to boardrooms. I shared openly. Betrayal fueled me, but kindness sustains me. Viewers connected, ratings soared. My mom watched it alone, she told me later. I saw myself in it. "I'm sorry, again." "Accepted," I replied, but the zero forgiveness impact held. No full embrace, just acknowledgement. As the empire expanded, new betrayals tested me not from family, but from the world. A board member pushed for aggressive cuts to boost profits, betraying our core mission. I shut it down firmly, replacing him. "We empower, not exploit," I stated in the meeting. It reminded me of home. Signals of disloyalty met with calculated response. Emotional shutdown in business? Priceless. In reflection, the lesson deepened. Mockery from loved ones isn't just words, it's a mirror to their fears. But you choose whether to reflect it back or refract it into something brighter. My path showed that revenge doesn't have to destroy, it can create. Justice comes in exposure, consequences in change, exit in growth. And forgiveness? It's a choice, not an obligation. I chose boundaries, and in them found freedom. The gala for CraftLink's 10th anniversary wasn't just a celebration, it was a declaration. Crystal chandeliers hung above tables filled with artisans flown in from every corner of the globe, their handmade pieces displayed like art in a museum. Investors mingled with creators who'd once sold from roadside stalls. Cameras captured every moment for the live stream, millions watching worldwide. I stood backstage, smoothing my dress, heart steady despite the roar outside. This wasn't about ego, it was closure on my terms.
When I stepped to the podium, the room hushed. Lights dimmed slightly, spotlight warm on my face. 10 years ago, I began, voice clear and calm. Someone told me my dreams were ridiculous, that I'd end up stuck like everyone else. Those words weren't said to inspire, they were meant to stop me. But instead, they became the soundtrack to every late night. Every failure turned lesson, every small win that built this empire. I paused, letting the silence stretch. In the front row, my mom sat beside Sarah, invited at my request, though I'd given no warning. Her face was unreadable, hands folded tightly in her lap. "Today, CraftLink isn't measured in dollars alone," I continued. "It's measured in the weaver who sent her daughter to college, the potter who hired his neighbors, the young girl in a village who now sells globally because someone believed her work mattered. We crossed $10 billion in cumulative impact last quarter, not just revenue, but real change." Applause erupted, sustained and genuine. I smiled, but my eyes found hers. For the first time in years, I spoke directly to the past without bitterness. "To the doubters, thank you. You taught me resilience isn't given, it's taken. You showed me boundaries are sacred, and you proved that the loudest you can't can become the quietest watch me." The room rose. Cheers, whistles, tears from some artisans who'd heard my story and seen themselves in it. I stepped down, hugged Sarah, then deliberately walked to my mom. She stood uncertain. I didn't hug her. Instead, I placed a small envelope in her hand. "Open it later," I said quietly. "It's not forgiveness, it's acknowledgement. You've lived with the consequences. Now live with this too." Inside was a check, enough to fund a small community arts center in town, named after my late father. No strings, no obligation to thank me publicly, just a quiet way to say, "Your fears don't define the future anymore." She looked at the envelope, then at me, eyes shining. "Elena?" I nodded once, turned and walked away through the crowd. The cold exit felt final, not cruel, but complete. No dramatic scene, no raised voices, just movement forward. In the months that followed, the empire kept expanding. We acquired smaller platforms, integrated blockchain for provenance tracking on handmade goods, launched an AI design assistant that helped artisans experiment without waste. Valuation climbed past $15 billion. Forbes listed me among the most powerful women in tech. But the headlines that mattered most were the quiet ones. CraftLink funds 500 scholarships in underserved areas. Artisan cooperatives report 300% income growth. My mom opened the Arts Center 6 months later. She sent photos, kids painting, elders teaching pottery, a small plaque reading, "In memory of dreams pursued." She didn't invite me to the opening. I didn't expect her to. But I watched the local news clip online, alone in my office, and felt something shift. Not forgiveness exactly, more like release. The betrayal had shaped me, but it no longer controlled me. Family ties loosened further, naturally. Holidays became optional. I spent them with chosen family, Sarah, early employees, artisans who'd become friends. The old house sold. She moved to a cozy apartment near the center. We texted occasionally, birthdays, holidays, small updates. Neutral ground, safe distance. In reflection, the moral thread wove clear. Betrayal from those who should protect you teaches the hardest lesson. Your worth isn't borrowed from approval, it's claimed through action. Revenge, when done right, isn't destruction, it's creation on a scale they never imagined. Justice arrives not in confrontation, but in living proof. And the coldest exit? It's walking away not in anger, but in peace, knowing you've outgrown the pain. I still dream big. Bigger, actually. New continents, new causes, new heights. The girl mocked in a kitchen became the woman who built worlds. And somewhere, in the quiet spaces between success and memory, I carry the lesson forward. Let them laugh. Let them doubt. Then let your life answer. Because the most powerful payback isn't words shouted, it's a legacy whispered through generations. Years passed like pages turning in a book I'd already written the ending to. CraftLink didn't just survive, it dominated. We became the default platform for ethical handmade goods worldwide, the one every conscious consumer checked first. Revenue stabilized in the high tens of billions annually, but the real metric I tracked was lives touched. Over 5 million artisans now earned sustainable incomes through us, millions more buyers supporting fair trade without even thinking about it. The foundation I'd started grew into its own powerhouse, funding innovation labs, disaster relief tied to artisan communities, even mental health resources for creators facing burnout. From mockery in a small-town kitchen to global infrastructure for dignity, that arc still felt surreal when I let myself dwell on it. I rarely went back to Attic or the old town anymore. When I did, it was surgical. Quick visits to the Arts Center, which had become a thriving hub, brief coffee with a couple of childhood friends who'd stayed loyal, then out. The streets looked smaller, the houses quieter. People still stared sometimes, whispered, "That's Elena, the billionaire." I smiled politely, signed the occasional autograph for a kid brave enough to approach, then disappeared again. No lingering, no nostalgia trips. My mom and I settled into what could best be described as cordial neutrality. She never asked for more than I'd already given. The Arts Center carried my father's name, and she ran its programs with a quiet pride I could respect from afar. We exchanged messages on major holidays, short, warm enough to be civil, cool enough to maintain distance. Once, on my birthday, she sent a photo of the center's latest exhibition, kids holding up clay pots painted with dreams they'd written inside. The caption simply read, "They remind me of you." I stared at the image for a long time before replying with a single heart emoji. It was the closest we'd come to softness in years. The zero forgiveness line had softened at the edges, not into full pardon, but into something gentler, acceptance of what was. She had been who she was, afraid, limited by her own losses, projecting survival onto me as control. I had become who I became, guarded, driven, unwilling to risk that vulnerability again. Neither of us needed to win the narrative anymore. The empire had already spoken. Professionally, the challenges never stopped, but they no longer felt personal. A hostile takeover attempt from a faceless conglomerate, defeated with shareholder loyalty and clever bylaws I'd insisted on years earlier, regulatory battles in new markets, won through patient diplomacy and local partnerships. Each time the board would look to me, waiting for the emotional flare up they assumed would come. It never did. I handled it the way I'd learned to handle everything after that kitchen night: calm assessment, calculated moves, quiet victory. In private, I kept a single memento from the beginning days, a screenshot of the very first Craft Link sale notification, $47 for a wooden spoon carved by hand. I framed it, small and unassuming, on the shelf behind my desk, not as a trophy of revenge, but as proof that momentum starts tiny, that even the most mocked dream can compound into something unstoppable. One evening, after closing a landmark deal that brought CraftLink into physical retail spaces in every major city, I sat alone on the balcony of my apartment overlooking the skyline. The city lights stretched forever, a reminder of how far the view had expanded. My phone buzzed, a rare voice message from my mom. Elena, I was cleaning out old boxes today. Found some of your dad's sketches. He always believed in big things. I wish I'd let you believe too, sooner. Anyway, just wanted you to know the center had its biggest month ever. Kids are dreaming out loud now. Because of you. I listened twice. No tears this time, just a long exhale. I didn't reply right away. Instead, I opened my laptop, pulled up the dashboard, numbers climbing, impact spreading, future bright. Then I typed back, glad to hear it. Keep going. Short, neutral, final in its own way. The cold exit wasn't dramatic anymore, it was simply life. I'd moved on not by erasing the past, but by outgrowing it so completely that it no longer had weight. The empire stood as its own monument to persistence, to boundaries, to turning pain into purpose. And the moral that settled deepest after all these years: sometimes the greatest revenge isn't seen by the person who hurt you, it's lived by the person who survived them. It's in the quiet mornings when you wake up free, in the nights when sleep comes easy because the doubter's voice is finally, permanently too small to reach you. It's in knowing you didn't just prove them wrong, you proved yourself right. And that, in the end, is the only justice worth having.